And welcome back, everybody, to Meta HSE. I'm still Midnight, still joined by Mendrix for our semi-finals run. Or the finals run, I suppose to say, here at Meta HSE, 4th League of Legends Championships round. Of course, we did have the quarterfinals just before, where we did see Delasel fall victim to Botany Downs Secondary College. Of course, now rocking into the semi-finals there, we will be following Botany Downs Secondary College, facing off against their opponents for this particular round, which will be Kingsgrove North High School, also known as the Panda Republic. So it should be quite an interesting game. But before we do dive into that, Mendrix, I'm just going to give a bit of an update on the rest of the bracket there.
Yep.
Because I do feel like, it's nice for people to know what is going on around them. So,
Yep.
Mount...
They deserve a spotlight, a bit of a spotlight.
Exactly. So we do know that Mount Gavat State High School, who did face off against Rossmoy Senior High School, did beat Rossmoy Senior High School. So the representative from Western Australia will have to fight their way through the bottom side of the brackets there. And they'll be facing off against Mansfield State High School. So maybe a bit ironically, the two Queensland states will be running into each other here at the semi-finals matchup here. So that'll be quite fun for them. Of course, that does also mean that Murray Bridge High School from South Australia has fallen down and will have to make a lower bracket run as well. So, approaching the semi-finals, Mendrix, that means the 4 teams that have made it so far is going to be the likes of Kingsgrove North High School. Obviously, in this particular matchup, we have facing off against Botany Downs Secondary College, and Mount Gavel and Mansfield State High School are our 4 teams that will be making the upper bracket run for now, but we will have to say goodbye to 2 of them in about an hour's time. So let's find out. And the ones we'll be obviously taking a look at is going to be the likes of Kingsgrove North, Kingsgrove North, and Botany Downs. So any further ado, Mendrix, let's get into it.
Yeah, exactly. I think the players as well are believing, hey, it's time to get going because we've just jumped into that champion select. And it is going to be interesting to see what these guys do decide to pick out as well. Obviously, with the Panda Republic, a completely different team from the prior. And first off the bat, meta seems to be the name of the game. They're getting rid of the Ziggs.
Yeah, and I really like that there. The Ziggs was a bit of a problem, honestly, in that previous round. There, it's a flex pick. It does a little bit of everything. So, what's the harm in getting rid of that one there? Hell, you can even just do the strategy where you ban what you saw them beat the other team with, right? Like, that is always a possibility if you're not so sure what to get rid of.
Yep.
So we'll see if that goes. Obviously, on the other side of it, the Thresh falls victim once again. Botany Downs, they're not a fan of the Thresh Prince there.
Well, again, the Thresh Prince has always been relevant throughout all of it coming across as well, so you can understand why they want to get rid of it. And obviously, it does mean as well that it does get rid of some specific picks. If you do happen to want to run a more mobile-less sort of champion, say, for example, an Ashe, just as, on the flip side of things, you do want to get rid of the Thresh because, of course, it is going to be very easily picked up. You need to be a bit more careful when it comes to your positioning as well. So basically, it's just getting rid of a number of things, and it seems to be, once again, aim of the game is going to be those target bans because the J4 that we saw before off the pitch, and at the same side of it, we've seen the Shen as well. So I do see that Panda Republic have come into this with a game plan. They did take into account the match prior as well. They've definitely been watching, and this is really, really good to see. It is going to be the advantage of being placed that higher seed.
Yeah, makes life that much easier when you can watch your opponents before you have to actually fight them, stug them a little bit there. And that's where the Ziggs comes from. As well, let's take a look. What does Kingsgrove North really feel like taking for themselves for their first pick? And Aphelios still up and available, but with the Thresh removed, not so sure if it's going to be a worthwhile decision. Instead, after letting the clock tick down for quite a bit, they will choose to go for the Malphite as their first pick
interesting.
in here.
That's very interesting. Because typically, you think, hey, let's actually go for something a bit more priority. And when we look at the meta at the moment, Lee Sin and Jin Zhao really have been up there in terms of it there. I know there's been a few nerfs that might have kicked off that being one of the advantages into it. But the Malphite doesn't really give anything away other than, of course, what's going to be in the top lane. And he is a champion that's very hard to find a specific counter to. Typically, he's going to do fine. You have to sort of play an AP laner if you really want to punish out the Malphite pick here. So really is forcing out a little bit more information gathering from Botany, whereas Panda Republic are going to sit there and saying, what are you going to be your picks? What do you want to go for? And it seems they're going to sit back on comfort. Ezreal and Trundle were really good performers in the previous match. Makes complete sense to decide to pick them up this time around as well.
Yeah, and you've got to always remember that karma is a very real possibility as a support. So it means that your ability to lock in, these tankier supports, which are so prevalent right now in the meta, it's just greatly reduced. And if you don't have Nautilus, Leona, the ones that start fights instantly in your wheelhouse, then, well, maybe you have to go for something a bit more defensive. The Seraphine here is as an answer. Or, is this Seraphine? I've been playing an aggressive amount of Seraphine mid recently. She is great fun. And it's a protect composition, Mendrix. This is brilliant.
Now the Malphite makes so much more sense. Malphite's really good in the sense that he can just basically pick snap decisions for engages, can really muddle up any sort of formation that your team has put together and that back to front. And that means it's easier for them to actually protect that one specific person purely because you're dealing with a rock in the middle of your midst. So the idea of the Malphite makes sense because sometimes a really good attack is going to be the best defense.
Yeah, so actually I'm really excited for this, Mendrix, because now it's AD carry and jungle are the two roles that we just don't know just yet. So I'm hoping it's gonna be two high damage dealers. I'm talking something like, I don't know, Jinx, Yi, something ridiculous. I think would just be really, really fun to have in this double shield composition, unless it is a Seraphine bot lane.
All right. Hear me out here. Hear me out here. Things get crazy, right?
Okay.
So you still get your, super AD bot that you want to protect, like a Jinx, Tristana, something along those lines, right?
Okay.
And for the jungle, you get Ivern.
Okay. The reason I make the bleh noise is because I love protect compositions. Don't get me wrong. I love when a Jinx or a Twitch or a Tristana, one of these hyper carries, or even the Cogmore, is super, super good. But
Cogmore would be good here, actually.
One damage compositions, Mendrix, always terrify me for one reason and one reason alone. What if you fall behind? What if the laning phase goes disaster? What if you get camped? And in the team fights, if you lose your Cogmore, if you lose your hyper carry, you've got nothing left over. There's no backup button, especially with a Seraphine Lulu.
No, it's true. Like, it absolutely is true, and it makes sense, right? It is a bit of high risk, high reward because obviously the idea is, hey, we need to make sure that we take out the ADC. If we don't, he's just going to absolutely blow us up. Especially if it is a Cogmore sitting in the back lines, happy to just free fire. And the reason why Cogmore would actually be a pretty good pick coming to this composition is because he does so well against Ezreal. Ezreal can't sit back and fire pot shots because he's got to deal with living artillery coming through from Cogmore. On the flip side of things, you've decided to go for the Trundle, for the Ornn. You can rip through them with the Cogmore. So it makes sense now that Botany's having to find a solution to it in the Orianna. Orianna's fantastic at controlling zones. Will actually put a ADC that's looking to be like that on kilter. And by looks of things, the Graves obviously is going to be another win condition, another damage front that could come through to things if your ADC happens to fall behind.
Yeah, I do quite like that here from the Graves. And Graves can also be played as a solo laner. Let's not forget that. So Graves mid is a possibility if the Seraphine Lulu is the strategy down bottom. So it's time to find out what is this funnel looking. This needs to be high damage. Okay. So it is the Seraphine Lulu bot lane. So it's okay, it's not a hyper carry like we were expecting.
Yep.
But it's a Katarina coming through there as the hyper carry.
I'm just looking at it here. I'm just trying to think. This Katarina's gonna have a bad time. Katarina's gonna have a real bad time.
Like,
you've got the silence, rocket grab, rocket punch from Blitz to stop the ultimate. Ezreal has the ability to stay out of the mist. If you try to jump onto him, he's just gonna be like, I can just shift away, so that's fine. Orianna, of course, at the same time has the ability to shield, can use a shockwave if you decide to jump into her, basically just bring the ball back to herself. Shockwave immediately stop that real damage from coming through. Ornn, of course, also has the knock up. in the sense of not just from the Q, but also from the E knock up as well when he just decided to do a wall slam. And Trundle on the flip side can also stop the ultimate from coming through using the pillar. So you have 5 pretty, well, actually, you really start counting it out, like close to 6 to 7 ways to stop the Katarina from actually jumping into the mist and causing that damage. It is really going to be coming back to Malphite. Malphite, if it goes first, might be able to buy enough room for Katarina to get in there and put out that obscene amount of damage that we know Katarina can do. So it's really going to be on them making sure that Katarina is not caught out prior. Because the Blitzcrank here, I really love it. A lot of these laners are actually quite immobile. Yes, Lulu can speed herself up. Seraphine can also, have a little bit of a movement steroid, but there isn't any dashes except for the Graves, right? But you're not really aiming for the Graves here. You're aiming, of course, for the Seraphine, for the Lulu. Hell, even Katarina, if he doesn't have anyone nearby to Shrimpo to, doesn't have the most easiest way to get away. So a lot of it really is going to be on the fact that these guys need to be on point to avoid, of course, what's going to be the rocket grab from Blitzcrank.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest X factor out of the composition the Botany Dance have drafted themselves, right? It looks like a stock, standard team fight composition. Oriana, some beef balls out of the Trundle Orn, an 80 carry that can do well in team fights. Ezreal, of course, is fine even in the thick of things. Like we saw it last game.
Self-peel AD.
A self-peel AD, which means Blitzcrank doesn't need to worry about protecting the squishy little marksman that he's babysitting all game. He can piss off and say, okay, hippity hoppity, this other lane is absolutely my goddamn property.
True. I'm expecting some roams from Danny. I would love to see some early game roams because that's what Blitzcrank really excels at. Look to see perhaps hopefully Boots' mobility first pick up for the Blitzcrank and begin to make moves around the map because you can leave the Ezreal to his own devices. Even if he is going to get 2-man, 3-man, he can actually have the ability to get away if he does just position that a little bit better because of how powerful that self peel is on the Ezreal.
So that should be really, really good. Though honestly, I like the composition. And facing up against them, the drafting feels a bit weird. Honestly, like I put a lot of value on the Panda Republic, Kingsgrove North as a team. Like I don't recall many times that they've performed poorly. But this draft is not something that fills me with a ton of confidence, Mendrix. They've got the Malphite, Seraphine, Lulu, which gives us the remnants of like Taric, Sona, and that disgusting meta. I don't want to talk about the meta. I don't want to think about that stuff.
Funnel meta?
The funnel meta, basically. It's very funnel meta-esque. But then the 2 carries they've got is Graves, which if he snowballs is broken. But if he goes average, it's sort of it's okay. And Katarina, which normally I'd be all for, except Blitzcrank, Trundle, Orn. I'm worried. Like it's not a composition that if you mess this composition up from Kingsgrove North, I should be more specific. You're in pain for the next 20 minutes if you mess up the early game in any aspect.
Yeah, that is probably an accurate description that you're looking at here. And a lot of it is going to be on them making sure that their execution is mint. They've got no room for error against the team composition that Botany's put together. So Panda Republic need to be on point. And if I'm looking at this Graves here in terms of what he's going to be doing, he should be living on that bot side of the jungle because that's where he's got priority. He doesn't have priority on the top side of the map. So it's really going to be on them making sure that they've got that bot lane under wraps and him getting as much resources as possible from that side because he should be able to out clear, in a sense, this Trundle.
Yeah, hopefully so. Well, Mendrix, it will be time for our second match of the night, the semi-finals between the likes of Botany Downs Senior College as well as Kingsgrove North. So guys, do not go anywhere. It is time for the semi-finals here at Meta HSE to be kicking off. And welcome back, everybody. It is go time here at Meta HSE for the semi-finals between Botany Downs Secondary College, and of course Kingsgrove North. Should be quite exciting for things to be kicking off here between these two teams. Of course, the semi-finals has a lot to play on. The winner of this goes to the grand finals, and the loser of this game has to fight their way through the lower brackets.
And pretty interesting in that sense to say what's happening across the board here, because I mean, when I'm looking at everything that's happening here, they're already beginning to push on through, no problems. I'm liking the play at the moment. Just checking to see, are you sitting around 1 minute?
No, you've gone way too early, Mendrix.
Way too early. Fair enough.
You've gone way too early in that one, my guy. We are at about the 35-minute mark.
35-minute mark. I feel like I'm a bit late now.
I have teleported into the. I have ascended into another realm. Is what's happening.
Fair enough. Well, I'm at 43. What about you?
Yeah, that sounds about right there.
So, okay, cool. Yeah. That sounds good. I guess I'm 47, 48. I think we're looking pretty good.
Yeah, we're looking good here. So what we did get to see, of course, was the Tribush was warded up early by Kingsgrove North and immediately got sent out. And it makes sense. You have a Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank isn't just going to sit back in the early game and let the early game play itself out. No. They're coming in hard here for a red buff poke around. And it should be quite interesting if they commit to this invade. I think you should, right? You've got a Blitzcrank. You need to actually use that advantage. The pull at level 1.
Well, exactly, and you can see a very importantly by Panda, they immediately just dropped the wards down, made sure everyone's not in a position to get pulled, so everything is looking good.
Yeah, do stay safe here, as looks like we will have a little bit of a pause once again, guys, just to make sure that we are synced up and good to go. So, guys, do not go anywhere. We apologize. It'll be a short delay, and we'll get right. Oh no, never mind. I cannot read today, man. Might as well take my glasses off of what's going on here. Never mind. Ignore what I'm saying. Early game, junglers, Mendrix, go.
All right. Well, you know what? I don't think we should even talk about the junglers right now, because the junglers are just doing their own thing. It's very typical. This is okay. Look what's happening here. Danny's going deep onto Saint.
Yeah, Saint did get pulled in there. The early game aggression of a Blitzcrank getting some good damage down, but with a Lulu Seraphine, they should be able to stay relatively safe. Hopefully, I'm actually going to double check the Seraphine runes here. And what's interesting is it's sorcery primary, which is stock standard for a Seraphine, right? Like, that's what you want. But secondary, it is not revitalized. Never mind, as Danny looking for something. Ooh, hook does not connect, and that ends the aggression. So actually, Danny going to get hurt quite a bit. The mana barrier being popped, but the secondary isn't revitalize on the tank stats. No. It is instead presence of mind and coup de grace coming in for the Seraphine.
So it really does need to make sure that everything's completely fine on that. We'll have some extra damage to kick, and it seems like we know who is actually going to be the support, who's going to be the AD going forward, or the damage carry. And Obsessed has found Panda.
Yeah, Panda's overstayed their welcome here a little bit, unfortunately. TP coming through, which I'm not so sure is the best call here, because you're going to lose your top lane, but the reinforcements have come through. Oh my god! The smoke screen bought so much time, and now Goblins forced the flash out, but the flashes come through on the back end of it there. One more round of shotgun volleys comes through. 2 kills on the Graves here. That is a massive lead here for Kingsgrove.
And I really like the decision here from Kingsgrove as well to say, you know what, we're not going to have lane priority in the mid lane. What we'll do is we'll just drop that teleport, drop the ignite, get Katarina up in the front there to start getting some gold another way, or at least give it away to, of course, what's going to be the Graves, who's now 2-0 up, and just sack the fact that, hey, we're going to be giving up a little bit of course, control in the mid lane. I'm going to lose some minions here in return, but that's absolutely fine. I'm okay with giving that up here because we're getting the kills elsewhere, and we're making up for it another way. And Danny's going a bit aggressive because Obsess is here.
Yeah, but they will have that polymorph there, but getting caught up, knocked up there, forced to flash to safety, but the disengage of a Seraphine is difficult to match. One of the best things that the Seraphine does bring to the table is, I think, with that passive, as long as you're using it properly, you'll find the slow, or the root, I should say, from the double E, the shielding and healing from the double W, and of course the execute damage of the double Q is ridiculously good, as long as you're using it properly, Mendrix. So far, as much as I don't like Seraphine in the bottom lane, Kingsgrove North haven't been playing it poorly. So, there is that going for them right now.
absolutely agree with you in that sense as well. And even though, again, they do happen to have a little bit of advantage when it comes to that kill as well, isn't really reflected in that gold leader because, of course, they've given up somewhere around the map. And specifically looking at Dilma too, who's actually just going to have a bit of a CS advantage over this Katarina. So things are going to be falling a little bit hard now here for Katarina. Katarina's going to have to deal with the fact that, hey, this is going to be a accelerated Orianna when Dilma does decide to back away and teleport back in.
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem. I mean, it's stock standard, right? Orianna building an early game lead against the likes of an assassin if the assassin isn't allowed to play super aggressive. As Sane is getting caught out here, Danny and Dante fully committing onto the Lulu that they will take them down. One more hit, but can CP come through? Dante forced the flash there. Danny left behind for it, but will they get out alive? One hit will do it. Not taking down. Panda is going to pick up Dante, but Danny running for the hills there. The LT is going to get cut down, though. And as far as you can run, Danny, unfortunately, mate, you just died tired as 3 kills over to Panda.
An absolute disaster here, even though it was technically a 3-on-3. When everything was said and done, you used up way too many resources to get the initial kill in the first place. And then directly afterwards, when someone did come in, looking at Dilma, hadn't gone back yet, hadn't bought, hadn't actually had the amount of extra oomph into those attacks directly afterwards. And when you've got a Graves and a Seraphine who are pretty much fresh from their own backs directly afterwards, more than happy to take that fight. And as you can see here now, they're beginning to explode onto the map, getting not only just the dragon afterwards, but of course, when they do back away from this, being able to spend that spoils of war, it's going to be a very difficult bot lane here now for Dante and Danny.
And that's just because of the extra poke that we will be seeing coming out of the Seraphine. Is going to be difficult to handle. Okay, maybe not as bad because it is the full support bot lane. Oh man, I'm not sold on this personally. Again, it can work. I'm not saying it won't work. I'm saying that I'm just not a huge fan of, these utility bot lanes, Mendrix. And I am old. I am a fan of the whole bot lane for the marksman to be babysat by a support because that's all you need sometimes.
Midnight, you need to get with the times, mate. You need to realize there's different ways to play the game. You expand those horizons. This is the only way that you can get better, okay? Especially if you can cheese out. I mean, come from someone who got the challenge of cheesing. Believe me, it definitely works.
Yeah, it's I'm far too much of a traditionalist sometimes, man. I'm one of the players that look back at like season 3 fondly as, Danny gets a nice hook coming through there. The follow-up true shot barrage is nice, but no actual damage being committed, and that's partly because Ezreal, for all the damage that he can output, it's not a catch and burst champion. It is a I will poke you down over time AD carry.
Also, looking at that itemization choice, finally does have the Sheen in place there, but does really need you to use more of those auto attacks to get enhanced for it to really matter, and that really just didn't happen for Dante there. The other thing on the flip side as well is that, yes, even though the supports may not pack the biggest punch that you could imagine, at the same time, they can definitely shield, and that's exactly what happened to Saint. Saint was basically completely shielded up. All of that damage was absorbed. Yes, he did take a little bit of a bruising there, and did take a little bit of a bruising right off the back of that one, but when it was all said and done, was no real chance of dying, and you can see they were able to actually get some decent damage back onto Danny.
Yeah, and of course that is making this Blitzcrank pick a bit more of a problem, right? You need these Blitzcrank picks to actually, do well in the early game. That's kind of their whole purpose, is do well in the early game, snowball your bot lane, and then use that aggression to take over the rest of the map there. But unfortunately, the double protection that is the Kingsgrove North bottom lane, it's working out so far. 3-0 on the Seraphine, which is gonna keep everyone else in one piece. And it's actually looking a little alarming for Botany Downs here because their bot lane, it needs to do something, because if you get to the mid to late game, right, and this Seraphine Lulu is untouched, Seraphine Lulu isn't the problem. Katarina Graves may or may not be the problem.
And I really like as well the positioning here by the Panda Republic. What you can see is they realize, hey, we've actually managed to keep Assess relatively on on the tracked mark. We know he's on the top side of the map. It's going to be safe for us to continue to push out and put that pressure elsewise. And while that's all being said and done, looking at Graves, he's still out clearing Obsessed at the moment in time. That's going to be advantage. But Gold Blitz, he's going for it. He's pulled the horn, and here comes Obsessed.
Yeah, and Panda doesn't have the mana to force the flash there, but Obsessed with the pillar will be able to lock them down in place. No running away. Nachi did just get enough mana for the ultimate.
Oh, it's deja vu.
Is dropped, but now TP flank coming through. Panda coming through with the smoke screen as well. Oh my lord, the damage coming out there from the assassin is good. Obsessed is going to go down. No safety there. God Blitz will be able to escape with their lives, but there is a Rift Herald in the hands of our jungler. There is every possibility that they drop this just to get some nice turret plating.
Yeah, I really would like it to be dropped down as well at this point in time, because that also opens up the dive there. Panda unfortunately gave some damage, and that was really well picked up by God Blitz to actually get some damage in return. But as you can see, there's going to be enough for them to get forced out in the end. And I really want to just take into account here, that's twice now Obsessed has looked for a gank onto Malphite, and that's twice immediately has been responded with a teleport ignite from the Katarina. So you can really see it's like, hey, if you want to try and punish this Malphite in any way, you will have a response onto it. It is actually mimicked by the fact that Malphite in this case, I think that's the court catcher.
That is a dead Lulu right there, as the Seraphine does get the double stun into the charm. There's some nice damage output, but unfortunately this is a support. Seraphine just doesn't have the damage output to shut down Dante. Instead of shutdown goes to Dante, a nice injection of golds.
Yeah, they really completely destroyed Saint. No chance of the shield, no chance of them having to actually come back into it, because when they did get that initial pull, you had a very good burst there, and of course that's mimicked by the fact that Dante has now picked up the Trinity Force as well. And all of it came down to the fact that there was no real recourse for Saint. Saint couldn't use the ultimate, Saint couldn't use the ignite, couldn't use the flash, was basically dead in the water. And even though it was a nice damage from Panda, without that extra support coming through from the Lulu, wasn't able to deal with the fact that it was a 2-on-1, and this means there is a bit of a comeback here now for Botany Downs.
Yeah. While all this happened, guys, never mind, give us a second. As Dragon is secured, Danny's hook goes wide, but it says goes forward. Shockwave lands on 2 though! That could be good, but the Katarina has access to the backline there. It's turning them apart with the knockup, and the CC comes through, but it just does not matter. As Panda misses the ultimate, doesn't give it that, still gets the kill. And while Dragon may have been secured and picked up by the likes of Botany Downs, team fight didn't exactly go their way.
And this is what I'm talking about. The Dragon is a little bit negligible when it's at those opening Dragons, when it's actually going for the first one. Then when you overcommit for it and end up losing so much more in return, and he's stopping that back here as well. He's a big boy on that Malphite, and they might be able to really force out a little bit of extra oomph from this as well. A bit more extra gold from the tower plates.
I think it's just going to be the gold itself there. You just don't have the damage between these 3 members to kill an Ornn. I'm sorry, but no, that's not what these champions do. The Malphite is taken pretty low, gets knocked up there and pulled in. Call the Forge God does a good job to make sure there is no reinforcements coming to help out the dead Panda.
Yeah, a little bit greedy here, but then as well, we do have Graves here in response. Let's see if this ends up being an extended fight.
It could be. I mean, you could definitely look for that if that's what you're going for here. I think this would be more of a revenge, if anything.
But too.
Yeah, I mean, you could dive this, but who's tanking? Like, that's the one thing you don't have out of these 4 members is someone to tank the damn turret.
I mean, if you put a Wild Growth, well, Wild Growth isn't up here there at the moment. Okay, so let's sort of just bring it all back here, right? So when it was all said and done, I don't think that Dragon was the most worth Dragon. It might pay off dividends later in the game. Once, if it does get to that extreme late game, it's always nice to have the Scaling Dragon underneath your belt. But they do over-aggress a little bit to get those tower plates, which does mean that, of course, Malphite falls down. Not the biggest deal at the end of the day, purely because Malphite, of course, is still going to be useful regardless of how much gold is funneled into him or lack of gold in per se. So all he needs to do is land that ultimate, put down the attack speed slow, and then let the rest of his team do the work. I want to really go back to why that was so successful for Kingsgrove. Looking specifically at that Katarina, fantastic presence of mind to realize when all the CC had been used up, there was no real way to actually stop that ultimate from going off, and she went into the middle of it and just unleashed a blender of damage onto Botany Downs. That allowed for the follow-up for the rest of the team there, and allowed them to really solidify what is going to be probably the first meaningful lead in this game when I look at that gold. Roughly going to be just under 3k.
Yeah. And with that lead, the primary carries, I think it's fair to call them, of Kingsgrove will be getting their core items, the Eclipse on Graves, and of course, the Nash's Tooth on the Katarina. Now, Mendrix, I don't play a lot of mid lane anymore. I play like exclusively Xerath and LeBlanc because I'm that person. And then never mind. Dilmati is in a lot of trouble here. Is going to get torn apart. The Shockwave denied. Not even allowed to use that one for safety.
Now, what were you going to say? You were asking me a question there.
I was going to ask, is this the world of Kraken Slayer Katarina still? Is that still like the... Because I remember that was the build for ages. Never mind, we're getting a fight top lane now. Oh no, the Kingsgrove think they are doing well here, but they're being ambushed because there's 4 members of their opponents here. They'll lose their jungler instantly. Their top laner forced to run for the hills, but what an ambush coming in here by Botany.
Yeah, I mean, that was exactly well played by Botany there. I feel there was a bit of presence of mind actually lost on the flip side of things here by Kingsgrove or the Panda Republic. They should have realized, hey, Rift Herald is up. They're absolutely going to bring more than just 2 members here for this particular fight. Didn't really take that into account, ended up being overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of it. And that means they do give back shutdown gold, which is a nice gold injection to bring things back in line here for Botany Downs.
Nice spot for them there to recover what has been a bit of a rougher game there. Only 2,000 gold behind, which is more than recoverable, especially when you're willing to make those proactive sets. But I think it's also worth willing to remember is the team composition that they've put together here is a team fight composition. Orianna, Trundle, as well as the Ornn specialize in those kind of fights. So just wait it out. Wait a couple minutes, wait for the dragons, play around the dragons. Hell, if you only fight around the dragons, that's completely fine as well, because all it takes is one little misposition, one mistake from the Kingsgrove North players, and that's a 4-man shockwave. And you and I have both casted enough League, Mendrix, to know that a 4-man shockwave, 9 times out of 10, is a death sentence for most teams.
It is a complete game changer, and I absolutely agree in the sense of it. They have drafted a team composition that excels at team fights when you look at all their ultimates put together. But we can't forget the Panda Republic. They don't exactly have a team that can just be scoffed at for their team fight as well. I mean, they've got the Wild Growth, they've got the Malphite ultimate, they've got the Katarina ultimate with the reset capability as well. They definitely have the capability to go for these team fights as well. It all comes down to execution, and when I say ease of execution, it's definitely looking at the advantage here for Botany Downs. Their execution is a lot better in terms of ease coming into it. You don't need to worry about babysitting Dante. He's already really good in his own right. The positioning has been immaculate throughout all the games that we've seen him play today. Dante goes for the flash. They're not Dante. Danny looks for the flash, but unfortunately is going to find something there. But you can really see that they're beginning to just blow up, and you realize now's our time to use this team fight composition. And unfortunately, when all those resources have been used, they have to back away wisely.
Yeah, but not able to use the Herald, which is a little bit unfortunate there. They did want to use that to break open, or at least start breaking open the base itself. Unfortunately, that's just not going to be reality itself. They will just have to back it up and don't get any charge out of that one yet.
It's pretty sad when you have, something like the Shelly in hand and you don't get the opportunity to use it there. You can see the reasoning for why they wanted to make it work. They thought, hey, we seem to have a number of members here. We can force the team fight directly after the dragon and look for something. I think the biggest red flag for them to say, hey, we need to retreat, was seeing Malphite in the waiting wings there. That's the big weakness to the team fight composition, because yes, even though it's fantastic for them to actually execute on it, it's easy for them to do it, it's so much easier for the trigger to be pulled by the Malphite, especially when they clump up, because we've seen, Ori ultimates are great, right? But Malphite ultimates are pretty damning as well when they manage to land on 3 members plus.
Yeah. So it's a matter of positioning is going to be also equally as important between these 2 lineups today. As it looks like it's Goon Squad time on the top half of the map here, but they're targeting Goblets, the tankiest member of the team, and unfortunately the Seraphim ultimate will not connect. A bad concert there, unfortunately, but don't worry, you can get your money back in 2 minutes.
It's really nice when you do flash out of harm's way of an ultimate that could come through. It's even better when you flash as everyone throws out their ultimate. So very well played there by Godblitz, able to force out, of course, all of the cooldowns. It's always sad to lose your flash, but to be honest, it's probably the best case scenario for him. He doesn't die, he gets out, and he forces the abilities anyway, which makes it so much harder for them to engage into this fight, but he's still probably just going to play a bit more conservatively and let them have a turret at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's partly just because you don't know exactly if the rest of Kingsgrove North are in the top half of the map. You can probably make a safe assumption that they're not overstaying their welcome there, but you never know for certain. So I'm always a huge fan of always being a bit more on the side of caution. If you think they might be there, always play safe. And also a good assumption is they are in that, you see that unwatered bush right next to you that you're about to go, when you're about to play aggressive? No, the enemy team is in that bush waiting for you. Just no need to overstay it. And so far, not bad. 2,000 gold lead currently in the hands, though, of Kingsgrove North. Whittling down bit by bit, though, and with the team fight composition that Botany Downs is playing with on this red side here. The longer this game goes, honestly, the more I like their composition here, because this Katarina, yes, she scales pretty well, but if Katarina just is sort of 50-50, I've always been very vocal in saying that if an assassin isn't 3,000 to 4,000 gold ahead of their matchup, I'm sorry, but that assassin isn't able to do their job properly.
Oh, that's a good pull.
Oh, brilliant pull there. Will put Saint in a bit of an awkward spot, but realizes very quickly, wait, we don't have the backup. There's more of them here. Run! Run for it, Danny. Danny gets up, but no, Dante's been caught. Woohoo! That was a little bit close to cover. As they will pull them in. Shockwave only lands on one member, as the team fight charm comes through beautifully. TP flank though. Oh, the Katarina in the backline. This could be everything, but no, the knockups. The knockups devastate the mid lane of Kingsgrove North. As Saint, what was that? Living on a prayer, as they will lose yet another member, and Kingsgrove North lose their mind, lose their sanity, lose 4 members of their team.
And this is where execution was supposed to be everything. You could see what Panda Republic were trying to do there in that initial thing. And it just hit the mark time and time and time again. That idea of the team composition that was been put together by Botany, which is easy to execute, came up trumps. They were in the defensive position. They had the tower as the extra support there. And unfortunately for them, even though they were able to land hook after hook, the resources just weren't in place there. But because they have such a tanky team, they could buy time. They could hold out. They weren't able to actually just be completely blown up by the likes of the Seraphine, by the likes of the Katarina, of course, the Graves. And even though they had a pretty damn good mix that came into it, you could see that if things just went a little bit more the way of the Panda Republic, it could have been a completely different outcome. That is not what happened. And then from the fact that they were able to win that convincingly, were able to go back and completely turn this around. Dilmar's trying to jump, is getting jumped on here, but I don't think it's going to matter. And again, we're back into a team fight.
Yeah, but the team fight is not so much of a fight, as much of an execution. Saint gets taken down low. All the Portugal comes through there, but a nice ultimate from the Malphite there. Does buy room, but Dante is still left untouched here. This is not looking good. The Kingsgrove North, as they are forced to back away. Multiple members dropping. Their Katarina on the flank could be something there, but they'll lose it. No, never mind. Obsess goes down, taking out the Trundle. A really nice pickup there, and a bit of an overchase from Botany Downs there. It looks good for them, but unfortunately overstaying their welcome against the healing of a Seraphine is, okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Look, there's a lot of things that are going on down there at the moment, a lot of things happening just across the map. I think when we look at it here, you can actually get to see the real strength of the Panda Republic's team when it gets put together here. Oh, never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Also some of the weaknesses. They don't exactly have the best run when it comes to them looking for that hard engage there in terms of, when they look for it. Oh my god, Dante.
That's disgusting. But that's... Wait, flank coming through. This could be something, as they will disengage. The Blitzcrank will lose their life there, but Danny has bought enough time for Dante to get out in one piece, but the Malphite ultimate is almost available. Dante could get caught out by this. Needs to be careful. If he... It's like 1v3. Oh, but no! You can't do that at that time. Just thinking a little bit it was a bait. As Godblitz is there as backup there. Taken down solo, though. Dante will get away. But that is playing with fire like I have never seen before. Jesus.
and he doesn't get burned. Like, Dante has been on a slither of health 3 times in this game and has just gotten away. I can just imagine the rage building in the Panda Republic. Like we can't kill this damn Ezreal. This is the definition of self-kill ADC, being able to get away with murder time and time again. Now, I'm looking at everything that's happening here. I really wanted to just talk about the specific point that the Panda Republic's team really excels. And it's in those extended trades, extended team fights, where, of course, the lower cooldowns from the supports allow them to get out extra efficiencies, get a bit more effective health, and it really begins to show if the fight goes longer than that 5 seconds. If it goes into 10 seconds and there's a bit of a chase coming through, if they're able to keep them on that string and just kite them along from time and time again, they can really make something work. As long as they avoid, of course, that death claw that's going to be from Danny from the Blitzcrank. That's really going to be the big thing that really just throws a massive spanner into the works of their team composition, is making sure they do not get hooked and do not get locked down. On the flip side of things, if there is that execution there from Botany Downs, if they do manage to land that hook, land the on-horn, land the Oriana ultimate, everything comes down and it's happening again.
Oh my lord, they're getting caught out there. A charm lands on multiple members. That includes Dante in the back line there, but no one going down just yet. Malphite holding on that ultimate, not finding the opening. Now counter engage coming through in a choke point with Call of Fortune. Lands on multiple members as well. Panic dives into the back line, but it just doesn't matter. As Katarina, can they get... No, they interrupted again. The shockwave. This Katarina is not allowed to play League of Legends, and now without their assassin, it is all on the Graves. Graves needs to stay alive, does have double support, keeping them alive. This is good, as the Graves is able to carry the fight here. You lose one carry, but your jungler steps up.
Oh, Katarina did everything possibly right there. Tried to wait it out. Everything. Panda's back in.
Yeah, going in. You've got double support, so you can do this. You can go for this flash. One more auto attack. Never mind. The end of the line will take them down. Dante and Obsessed forced to run for the hills. Oh no, Saint stepped up too far forwards. This could be a disaster there. Dante is getting the poke down. You need to get on top of them. The Graves doesn't have the greatest range here. Will get onto Obsessed, cuts them down with end of the line. That's 2 who have reached it, but Dante is feeling confident here against the enemy jungler. Both, however, do decide to back away. And Mendrix, what a scrappy fight. But more than everything else, I feel like the power of these double enchanters in the bottom lane. What the hell?
This game is neck to neck. We've got 2 dragons apiece. They're at exactly 100 gold, being the difference between them. In fact, now it's just dead even. Look at this here. Absolutely ridiculous play from both ends. And again, you can continue to see the strengths there. It looks like it's going to go the way of Botany Downs, but as the game continues to, or those extended team fights begin to happen, the value from those extra supports, those 2 supports back to back together, really do begin to come through. This Graves seems to be absolutely unstoppable when he manages to get those cooldowns basically being fed into him time and time again. And this actually allows the Katarina to sit back and wait for that opportune moment to jump in as well. Yes, we haven't really seen it perform the way we'd like to, but it has the opportunity to still come in there and absolutely shred the team of Botany Downs away once again. And it looks like we're set up for this dragon. Here we are, and it's the dance is going to happen all over again.
Less of a dancer, maybe a bit more of a pub, nightclub dance party coming through here. As the dragon is taken low. Neither team wants to give this up, and Oriana is on the flank. This could be a message of take it away, actually. The engage comes through, but Call of Forge God does run across the entire team composition, but Oriana is not here for the fight there, as Kingsgrove North wins it decisively, but they lost the dragon on the back end.
But when you look at what you have now towards your advantage, I think you're happy with this outcome as the Panda Republic. It wasn't a soul. You now get to get rid of all this infrastructure that's available for Botany Downs, and at the same time also get the Baron. Now you're well and truly pushing yourself ahead in that gold lead. You can use it again. And this is the first time we've seen the Katarina absolutely go to town. Like you said, the Oriana wasn't there. They weren't in position to just get at that particular point in time. This allowed Katarina to get in there and completely remove all the competition. And if that's what she can do when she's able to actually look for the game plan, imagine she's able to do it again. You have more opportunities for error because of that double support team, because even though Katarina has been able to play, they've still managed to remain competitive. Imagine when she is allowed to do what she wants to do, and getting that gold definitely will give her an opportunity to do so.
I really am looking forward to Katarina-based flanks, right? That's kind of what you need to do, or you need to wait them out. Wait for the shockwave, wait for the trundle pillar, wait for the blitzcrank hook, wait for the okay, never mind. There's a lot of things to wait out for. Maybe you have to cut your losses and run at some point, because at some point you can't wait for every bit of cooldown to be thrown out before you commit to those kind of fights there. Or can you, Mendrix? Because we've seen how long these team fights can be drawn out, courtesy of the Seraphine, courtesy of the Lulu, courtesy of the tankiness that is both the Malphite and the Graves. Could you then just try and fight like a 4v5 for like a minute or two, maybe not a minute, but like for 30, 40 seconds, and then have your assassin try jump into the back line? Like, is that...
Absolutely. And you want
That's
to
what I
know
can
why?
see. Why?
You want to know why?
Hit me with
Because
it.
they are holding abilities for the Katarina, which means in the 4v5, they're not as strong as they would normally be. They're waiting for when that Katarina will appear, which means they need to have something in the back pocket to CC and lock her down. If you're holding on to your arsenal, that means on the other side, they can just let loose the entire time. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And you can really see that being the case here for, of course, both Saint and, of course, for the Seraphine in Panda. The fact that she's able, or those two are able to just continue to throw out pot shots willy-nilly, who really cares? While at the same time, you've got the Grays also being able to do so, it ends up being a competitive team fight.
Yeah. I feel like the person whose job it should be, at least if I was the one on the side of Botany Downs. Oh, Danny, come on. Danny's looking for something, but I'm not so sure he wants to pull in the Malphite. Oh, not sure that's the target there. As Danny gets into the back line there. Call the forward coming through on the back end as well. The shockwave coming through, but they're just stuck in a choke point. They're stuck in a choke point. This is a disaster. They want a drawn-out team fight, not a public execution. But Quadra kill for Panda. He might get the Penta, but it's stolen away. But the Katarina got into the backline. A disaster. Sure, you killed the Seraphine and the Lulu, but you don't need an extended fight if a Katarina slaughters your entire team.
That was insane. Everything across the board here from the team has been literally going the ways in terms of the team fights they wanted to. The Katarina finally gets some room to breathe, finally gets an opportunity to get everything to make it work, and it works up trumps. That was an insane quadra kill towards the end, and it honestly clinched the game.
Like, you talked about saving abilities for the Katarina, saving stuff for this assassin to stop it from, escalating out of control. But then you also have to balance that with, hey, you need to start the fight. Hey, you need to burn certain abilities to kick off the fight. And unfortunately, so much was burnt on killing the Seraphine and the Lulu that the Katarina, by the time that Botany Downs realized, oh yeah, Katarina's in our backline, it was just far, far too late, unfortunately, there. It's a unfortunate way for it to end, but unfortunate for Botany Downs. But for Kingsgrove North, what a way for this game to pan out.
Oh, it was incredible from start to finish there, because it wasn't really something that you get to see in a typical match of League of Legends. This is definitely an interesting team composition, which I feel has some real merit in competitive play. I really like what the Panda team have put together here. In terms of that MVP, I'm throwing it to this Katarina. And it's not just because he came out big with the Panda with the quadra kill at the very end to clutch out the game, right? It's not just that. Some of you might be thinking, hey, what about the Graves? Graves had such a good run. The reason why the Graves was able to perform was because the Katarina chose to take the teleport and ignite early in the game. That's what set up this Graves to have so much success. This is a play that has been sacrificing for the team, even by playing Katarina of all things the entire match, sitting back, waiting, not doing anything, waiting for those clear moments, jumping in and trying to get themselves killed for sacrifices at a point in time. It has been a suicide Katarina that actually chose summoners that hurt the laning phase to get the rest of the team ahead. And then with all that being said, is able to be the winning X factor for the team in the final fight. That is why I'm personally throwing it away for the Katarina here for Panda.
Yeah, mid lane Panda doing quite nicely for themselves there. Again, it's weird to hear the words sacrifice and Katarina in the same sentence, because most assassin players are just like, okay, I snowball, haha. And that's why I talked about it earlier in the game. An assassin player, I want assassin players to be multiple K gold up of their lane opponents, because 9 times out of 10, an assassin player will not give up something for the team. They expect the team to be playing around them. You know, look at like some of Zed. Zed's like, okay, if you want me to team fight, I can kind of join, but I'd rather just split push and then like bully the AD carry or bully whoever the hell comes over to deal with me.
And
So,
this is why that team composition they put together is just so brilliant when you look at it,
hmm,
because it's a team composition that it does kind of sacrifice for the Katarina, but doesn't have to give up too much in return for it, because you can just let it be for, of course, the Graves to come through and do stuff. It sort of is limiting your opponent while at the same time allowing you to excel in other ways. It's a
hmm.
really brilliant team comp.
Yeah, it's again. I'm not a huge like. I'm a traditionalist. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that they just didn't have a traditional marksman, right? Like, and that's just on me not liking that style of composition. But obviously, it can work. It definitely works if you're able to pull that off as well. And of course, Kingsgrove North were more than capable of executing such composition, and as a result, they will be advancing to the winners final, which of course we're playing out today. And now this one is going to be a best of 3 series, which will be very, very exciting to witness there in Mendrix.
Hmm.
Um, a quick update from the lower brackets, because of course we do have a little bit of time before we do go to a break before the finals of the day, where we did have two of our teams. Sorry, so Murray Bridge High School
Hmm.
faced off against Rosmore Senior High School, so that's South Australia and Western Australia, met each other in the first match of the lower brackets. I can say, unfortunately, the South Australian representative of Murray Bridge High School was not able to advance to the next stage of the competition, and unfortunately, that is a bid we have to bid adieu to South Australia for the League of Legends competition. But that does mean, of course, that Western Australia will be taking that next step forward, and they will have to face off against Botany Downs in the lower bracket best of 3 grand finals there. So, of course, we wish them the best of luck. But, guys, we will be going to a short break. But when we come back, we have our final match of the night, the winners' final, a best of 3 between the Panda Republic, which is, of course, the representative from Kingsgrove, North New South Wales, facing off against Mansfield State High School, coming up from Queensland. So, guys, do not go anywhere. We'll be back in just a bit.